So, when I was in seminary, back when the earth was new, I was taking a course in Hebrew Bible, as you do, and the prof was talking about all of the holy places in ancient Israel, and there were a lot of them. And people would get all grateful to God for something, and they'd pile up some stones to mark it, or raise up an altar or something. As an aside, this is one of the reasons why wherever I have lived for the past 30 years or so, there has always been a little stone altar in my yard, because I am grateful for the blessings of a home. Anyhow, the professor asked, how did they know or decide where the holy places were, where to put them? And the correct answer, of course, provided by one of the keeners in the class, not me, was where they thought the presence of God was. Correct. And then the professor asked, and where do people decide to put churches nowadays? And the correct answer, of course, provided by one of the smart Alecs in the class, that was me, was where there's parking. She said I was right. Sadly, the folks who organized the Simpson Avenue Methodist Church on this site in 1899 did not take that into consideration. Come early if you want a good parking place. When I was in Israel, one of the places I went was Tel Megiddo. And a tel is basically an artificial mound or hill, but it's a human artifact. It consists of the accumulated and stratified debris of a succession of consecutive settlements at the same site, the refuse of generations of people who built and inhabited them. And Megiddo has been inhabited for about 9,000 years. So there has been plenty of stuff to pile up into a hill. As humans move through the world, we're always leaving things behind. And in Hebrew, the name of the place is Har Megiddo, and Har just means mountain or hill, and when that gets transliterated into Greek, the language of the New Testament, it goes from Har Megiddo to Armageddon. Sound familiar? Okay, because Megiddo actually occupies a very strategic place in Israel, and always has, and it was the site of many, many, many ancient battles. And that's why, in the book of Revelation, Armageddon is metaphorically described as the place of the final cataclysmic battle that signals the end of empires. That was just a little bonus factoid, having nothing much to do with the rest of my sermon today. But I just love random little biblical factoids and inflicting them on people, so there you are. Back to my subject, which, in case I wasn't clear enough, is holy places. Holy places. And actually, Megiddo does relate to the subject of holy places. Because when I was exploring that site, I found this one area where the archaeologists had dug way, way down through the hill, through thousands of years of occupation. And when they started at the top, what was there was a medieval church built there by European crusaders. But below that, there was an ancient mosque built by earlier Muslim conquerors. And below that, there was a Byzantine church from about the 3rd century of the Common Era. And below that, there was a synagogue from about 200 BCE. And below that, at the very bottom, dating from the early Bronze Age, about 3000 BCE, 5,000 years ago, an ancient Canaanite sanctuary with a huge round stone altar. I think I got a slide in there with a picture of it. Yes, no? That's it. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. And it's been described by archaeologists as actually the most monumental single edifice so far uncovered in the ancient Near East. And it ranks among the largest structures of its time, more than 10 times larger than the typical temple of that era. And it was determined by the thousands and thousands of bones found there to be the site of ritual animal sacrifice, not human, don't get your knickers in a twist, animal, not human, mostly sheep and goats. Why is this relevant? Well, when I first set eyes on it, I was actually stunned to realize that over the course of more than 5,000 years, so many people of so many different cultures and so many different faith traditions put their holy place on this one spot. And why? Because that spot was where all of those people from across time immemorial and with different understandings of who God is experienced the presence of God. And that is what made that place through all the ages a holy place. A holy place is where people experience the presence of the holy. Let me repeat that. A holy place is where people experience the presence of the holy. Now, the people of Israel, ancient Israel, had a lot of holy places, but before there was a land of Israel, the people of Israel wandered for a long time in the desert. Anybody remember that? 40 years wandering. And wherever they went, God went with them. That's a phrase you might want to remember, or embroider on a sampler, or carve into stone. Wherever they went, God went with them. And as they wandered, the book of Exodus records that God made the divine presence known in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And those pillars rested at the entrance to what was known as the tabernacle. Tabernacle just means dwelling place. And to the people of the Exodus, it represented the dwelling place of God. And what it was this humongous tent. Because if you will recall, the Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness, so it needed to be relatively portable. And as an aside, if you look at the book of Exodus, chapters 25 through 40-something, you will find a lengthy and elaborate and extremely detailed description of the tabernacle and all of its lavish accoutrements. Another slide. This is an artist's reimagining of it from that biblical description. And after reading all of that this week, I'm not exactly sure how portable it was. Let's see, gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, etc., etc., etc. To me, it seems more like glamping than camping, which is fine. I much prefer glamping myself. I'm not going to say God does. But the tabernacle was located in the very midst of the Israelites' encampment, so the visible symbol of the presence of God was constantly in the center of their daily lives. And that suggests that it is the desire of God to live among the people and stay in the midst of people. It said in the reading, "Have them make me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among them." So God wanted to be with the people, no matter how far they traveled, no matter how deep the wilderness. That psalm that I read for you all this morning, Psalm 139, is actually my favorite psalm. And I love that version of it that I read because it's been set to music. It's in Voices United, it's a beautiful tune, but it also fits very nicely with my very favorite bagpipe tune called Highland Cathedral. And I thought about getting a bagpiper in here, but it's really not an indoor instrument. But mostly, what I love about that psalm is the idea in it that God is always before me, God is always surrounding me, that there is no place on earth or under the sea or even in hell itself where God is not present with us and for us. And it doesn't matter, actually, where we put our holy places. All places are holy because God is present in all places. You know, when we made plans to renovate our sanctuary and looked at the possibility of holding services here in our newly renovated McCain Family Social Hall, there were some concerns on the part of the staff, and I know on the part of some of you as well. I know because I heard from you. It would be too crowded. It would be too loud. It would turn people off. It might not look like church. And here we are at the end of a bit over 2 months worshiping in here, and it looks to me as if everyone has survived. I always say that's my baseline criteria for any successful event. Everyone survived. But you know what? You know what? More than that, whether or not it looked like church, what do you think? Did it feel like church? Okay, can I get an amen? And you know why that is? Because the Spirit of God went before us every step of the way. And because the presence of the divine is not tied to any room, any place, the Spirit of God is in this place. And next week, when we joyfully move back into our sanctuary, God will go before us and be with us there too. Amen? As God always has been and always will be. Now, our spiritual tradition, which owes so much to the traditions of Judaism, and that first dwelling place of God was the tabernacle. It was just a tent. Its walls were made of richly decorated linen cloth, and the desert breezes could blow through it as the Spirit of God likewise blows through our lives. Over time, we've solidified the walls around us, and so often our modern tabernacles have become concrete and brick and become filled with uncomfortable furniture and encrusted with bad theology. Let's keep the theology and the architecture simple. God is here. God is here. In Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, he writes, "Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you?" God dwells in you. I have a confession, actually. I can never hear that verse about being God's temple without recalling the meme going around the internet that says, "My body is a temple, ancient, crumbling, probably haunted." But if you want a more serious take on that, in the Gospel according to Luke, Jesus taught the dominion of God. In other words, the dwelling place of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, "See here" or "See there." For indeed, the dominion of God, the dwelling place of God, is within you. God dwells in you. Wherever you go, God is. Wherever you go is a holy place. There's a hymn that we sing sometimes, and I'd kind of like to close with it. And I'm pretty sure you all know it. Even without a slide, I think we can sing it through a couple of times, because we know the presence of God is in this place. Take it away, maestro. Amen.
Amen.